we have sports agent Chris Gesue on the line. Gesue has worked at Don Butch Walton Associates since 2004, where he has represented star athletes such as Keith Hernandez, Ryan Grant, Anna Ivanovic, and Doc Gooden, amongst many others. Great to have you here, Chris.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Great. Okay, so right off the bat, I'd like to get a feel of what this week leading up to the Super Bowl means for you as an agent. When you have a player in the Super Bowl, let's take, Ryan Grant last year, are you very much focused on them, giving them a lot of advice?
Yeah, of course. One thing I just want to clarify is that the majority of what I do for athletes and even celebrities is on the marketing side. So where that doesn't mean that I'm not connected to the players or fully invested or watching and rooting for them. It is a slightly different role than the contract agent. And in most sports nowadays, I would say the majority of these athletes have multiple people doing that type of work for them, unless they're with like a big agency like a CAA, like or IMG, like the Eli and Peyton are. So with that said, yes, when somebody's in the big game like this, like last year with Ryan, even though he wasn't playing, obviously you're a lot more invested. Just like anybody else, I grew up as a fan of a particular team. I'm a Jet fan. So obviously I don't have a team interest any time in my lifetime. But when you have a player connected to a game like this, then yes, you are a lot more involved and invested than you normally would be.
That's great. Hey, Chris, this is Mike. And, so not only now is it, Super Bowl week, but today was National Signing Day for college football. When this time comes around, when does your work start in terms of signing any of these guys, if you have any of them, targeted, and what exactly do you say to these guys? What's your kind of your selling point to them? How do you sign them?
The work is always going. I mean, you're constantly looking at who are the up and comers, who are going to be the big stars. And for me, it's who are going to be the marketing guys, who are going to be the guys that, brands are going to look at and say, we want to hire them as spokespeople or that type of thing. So you're always working in that capacity, whether it's, football players, baseball players, Olympic athletes, or a big one, tennis, golf, it doesn't matter. From a marketing standpoint, you don't necessarily have to specialize. Like, if I was Scott Boras and all I was doing was baseball, or Drew Rosenhaus and all I was representing was football, you can centralize how you look for these players. But from a marketing guy, it's really, where are the stories and where are the people that are going to be appealing, and that's where you look. And I do represent some guys on a smaller level in more than just marketing. Like I have a couple of minor league baseball guys that I handle their whole thing. And you just try to find where there's a good fit. Like for example, the two baseball guys that I have, one of them I knew from my hometown, and the other guy he knew. So he referred me to them. And now I have them both. So it's a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot of who you know, how you can get connected to the players, and your credibility, your reputation really mean everything. And then I'm sure you're going to ask me, well, how do you build a reputation without representing anybody?
Well, yeah, okay, let's go with that.
It's hard. It's hard. To have somebody give you a chance when you haven't done it before or you haven't had a track record, it's very difficult. So I'm not going to paint a pretty picture where I can tell you that I can get Andrew Luck on the phone and say, hey, guess what? I can get you good endorsement deals. Well, with a guy like that, a trained monkey can get him good endorsement deals.
Right.
It's just who can get to him. So you got to pick your spots. For me, I just tried to find anybody that would be willing to give me a chance to prove myself.
Right, exactly.
So these minor league baseball guys, they weren't big draft picks or top prospects. but they were guys with ability, and they were going to need somebody to look out for them too. So, you know, I figured I can help them out, and they can help me out by giving me a shot.
Right.
And from the marketing standpoint, it's you know, it's very similar. Now, I'm lucky that I work for an agency that has a good reputation in the commercial field, so that helps. You know, I do not recommend doing this on your own. It's, you know, it's a long haul. I mean, you know, it takes years of swings and misses before you get a couple of hits.
Right. Now, talking about one of those, you know, big time players, not a guy that you have, but let's say, you know, when a guy like Derrick Rose recently signed a huge contract with Adidas, how does that affect, you know, the marketing contracts for lower tier players? Are you happy that they're getting the deals because it raises the bars for everybody, or are they kind of taking away money from other athletes?
No, I never want to see another agent make a big commission, that's for sure. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, it definitely does mean something. Anytime the barometers are pushed up, it's good for everybody. And you know, you read in the agent handbook that, you know, the more money the top guys get, the more money the lower guys get. And that's not always true. Conceptually it is. But, you know, Derrick Rose getting that huge deal from Adidas doesn't help some guy on the D-League right now that's trying to fight for a spot. It's still all about who you are as an individual. And the bottom line is, how many shoes can you sell? That's what they look for. They want to know how many shoes you can sell.
Right.
So, you know, there's a lot of guys out there that are big-time players that might not be able to sell shoes, and they don't get deals. And it's the same thing. Football's worse because, you know, you got guys that are out there that are highly talented, but, you know, football players play in big pads and helmets, and nobody can really identify them, with the exception of their numbers and their names on the back of the shirt. It's only the Bradys and the Mannings of the world that get those big deals because they have that cross appeal. But it's a very few. It's not the majority. Most guys that you see in the league, basketball, baseball, football, they all have some sort of deal with an equipment company, but a lot of times it's just for an exchange of equipment. There's no cash transaction.
Right.
And that doesn't help an agent any good.
Right. Going on, you know, a little more in depth in negotiations and stuff. Is there a difference in representing, you know, athletes versus other celebrities, or even athletes for, you know, in team sports versus individual sports? You know, do you have different things that you talk about with the companies when you're trying to make deals with them?
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the differences is, you know, if you have a tennis player, there are players that are in the top 50 in the world that don't have endorsement deals. So you really have to get a good player. Or you have to do what I did, find a really smoking hot, beautiful player and hope that she pans out.
Right.
And she did. So there's more at risk, I think, with the individual player because, you know, if a tennis player gets hurt, has surgery, there's no contract. There's no contract with the league or with the team that's going to get them by. They're going to feed their family and they're going to live their lives based on the money that they earn on the court and based on the money that you get them in an endorsement deal.
Right.
Whereas, you know, if Derek Jeter gets hurt, he still has his contract.
Right.
So I think there's more at risk for the individual sport athletes, and Olympic athletes is even more so because they're amateurs. They don't even get paid outside of their sponsorships. I mean, they get money from the governing bodies, but it's not a lot. So, you know, they need the sponsorship in order to not have to work at Home Depot during off Olympic years. So there's definitely a more riding on it for the individual sport athletes. The team athletes, you know, they have a little bit of a cushion.
Right. So in general, Chris, how often are you contacting these athletes? And, you know, are you doing it more so for the individual athletes, you know, when you represented Olympian Tara Lipinski, more so than, let's say, Terrell Owens?
Yeah, you know, I'm at a point in my career still where, you know, it's like I'm happy if anybody calls me. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to represent everybody or anybody. I do look into a couple of different factors, but it doesn't really matter to me. If I think that they're a good fit, and if I think that I can market them and make business for them and for us, I'll consider it and work with pretty much anybody. It doesn't matter to me if they play a sport on a team, if they play hockey, if they play basketball. It doesn't really matter. I look at the individual. Tara Lipinski happened to be one of my first clients, and it was well after her competition years. So for her, it's a lot of like exhibition stuff. It's appearances. We got her a broadcast deal to work for NBC, and she was great because around the Olympics, she's a huge name. I mean, she's one of 7 women that have won a figure skating gold medal in the Olympics. So she was somebody who, I knew that I had missed the opportunity to market her when she was at top of her game, competition-wise. But she was a big name for me, and I was able to use that to open up a lot of doors. And that's the other thing. You got to consider who you're representing and what that means for your business, both presently and going forward.
Right.